Welcome to the space between. I am glad you're here. Pull up a chair. Take a slow breath with me. One of the things I am learning about in transitions is that we spend so much time trying to figure out what comes next that we often forget to notice where we are right now. So if you are navigating retirement, an empty nest, a health challenge, or simply a season of uncertainty, you are in the right place. Today, I want to talk about something that surprised me. You see, for more than 25 years, I have studied transitions. In fact, my entire professional career was built around helping young people who were aging out of the foster care system transition into adulthood. I researched it, I taught it, I wrote about it, I advocated for it, and I trained professionals across the country. Somewhere along the way, people started calling me a national expert. And for a long time, I thought I understood transitions pretty well. Then retirement happened. And it turns out there is a big difference between studying transitions and living through one. Who knew? Well, apparently retirement did. A few months ago, I was sitting in my favorite chair looking at a stack of books beside me, and I realized I had books on retirement, books on purpose, books on belonging, books on identity, books on aging. Clearly, I buy way too many books. My husband might have called it a pile, but I call it a research project, and that's when it hit me. I am a transition researcher. I have probably been one my entire life. I just never expected to become one of my own research projects. These days, I read retirement books the same way I used to read research studies. I look for patterns. I ask questions. The difference is that this time the transition I am writing about is my own. And that realization brings me to why this channel is called The Space Between. The name comes from a poem I read years ago by Judy Brown called Fire. And in the poem, she writes that what makes a fire burn is the space between the logs. Pack the logs too tightly and you can actually smother the flame. The fire needs room, breathing room, space. When I first read that poem years ago, I thought it was about balance. Now I think it's about transitions. Because if I'm honest, I spent most of my adult life adding logs. Another degree, another promotion, another project, another responsibility. I was productive, purposeful, driven, and very, very busy. I am what Arthur C. Brooks, in his book From Strength to Strength, calls a striver. Maybe you were too. You know who you are. You're the person who got things done, the person people counted on, the person who solved problems, led teams, raised families, built careers, volunteered, served on committees, and somehow still found room for one more thing on the calendar. And if there was not a mountain to climb, you probably built one. I certainly did. For strivers like us, staying busy feels productive. It feels responsible. Sometimes it even feels virtuous. But retirement has a way of asking questions many of us have been avoiding for decades. Who are you when there is no mountain to climb? Retirement changed that. Almost overnight, space appeared. And at first, I didn't like that space very much. I wanted a plan. I wanted a timeline, a roadmap, a checklist, preferably color-coded. I wanted certainty. I wanted clarity. Most of all, I wanted to drive that outcome. I wanted to figure out who I was going to become and get busy being her. But retirement had other ideas. And the more I reflected and journaled and meditated and walked and exercised and talked to other retirees, the more I began to see something I should have recognized years ago. That the space between is not a problem to solve. It's a place to inhabit. And that may be the single most important thing retirement has taught me. What I did not realize when I retired was that I was not just leaving a career, I was leaving an identity. And identities do not retire as easily as careers do. Years ago, when I worked with young people who were leaving foster care and entering adulthood, people often focused, when I talked to them about that, they often focused on practical questions about housing, employment, and independence. And those questions mattered, but underneath them was something deeper. These young people were leaving behind an old identity, and they had not yet fully grown into the next one. They were no longer who they had been, but they were not yet who they were becoming. They were living in the space between. And retirement feels surprisingly similar. Most retirement advice focuses on finances, and financial planning absolutely matters. But retirement eventually asks a different question. Who am I without the title? Who am I when achievement is no longer organizing my day? Who am I when fewer people need something from me? Those are identity questions. And identity questions take time. You cannot force the answers. Believe me, I've tried. Also, I figured out that retirement is not an event. It is a process of letting go, a process of rebuilding, a process of becoming. And becoming takes longer than we think. The challenge is not figuring out exactly who you are going to become. The challenge is creating enough space to discover who you are already becoming without rushing, without forcing, without immediately filling every empty corner with another project. And that's difficult for us strivers. We are very good at filling space. We see an opening and immediately wonder what belongs there: a project, a volunteer role, a consulting opportunity, a new goal, something, anything. Because empty space can feel uncomfortable when most of your life has been organized around accomplishment. Trust me, I have tried to turn retirement into a project more than once. But retirement keeps inviting me to do something different. To trust that not all growth is visible. To trust that not all progress can be measured. To trust that something meaningful can be happening, even when it looks like nothing is happening. When you're standing in the middle of a transition, uncertainty feels uncomfortable. We often assume uncertainty means something is wrong. But what if uncertainty is simply part of becoming? What if the space between is where the work is actually happening? Roots grow before branches. Seeds develop before flowers. And new identities often emerge quietly before they become visible. The older I get, the more I believe that some parts of life cannot be engineered. They can only be lived. And perhaps that is what retirement has been teaching me all along. Not how to create the next chapter, but how to make room for it. So if you're a fellow striver, if you've spent decades building, leading, helping, teaching, fixing, advocating, or achieving, I want you to hear this. You do not have to have it all figured out. You do not have to immediately replace the identity you left behind. The next chapter may already be unfolding, quietly, gradually, in ways you cannot see. Your job is not to force it. Your job is to create enough space for it to emerge. And before we go, let's take one more slow breath together. The space between can feel uncomfortable, but perhaps it's not empty at all. Perhaps it's where becoming happens. The fire knows how to burn. Our job is not to force the flame. Our job is to protect the space that allows it to find its way. If you know somebody else navigating this uncertain middle, invite them here. And if this resonated, please hit like and subscribe. It helps others find their way to this space too. We'll learn in public, we'll rest on purpose, and we'll get braver together. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Winter, and this is The Space Between.